Welcome to Let's Be Frank. We've had a little bit of a production break because I've had a lot going on. So we thought we'd have a little catch up, talk about what's happening in my life, and I'm sure we can talk a little bit about what's happening in your life, if that comes
Sure.
up. Um,
Yeah.
so, first off, I went to Ireland on holiday for a couple of days. So I ended a job and I had a week in between starting my new job. So my mom and dad happened to be visiting from South Africa, and it was a great opportunity for them and my niece and myself. My niece is 10 years old, to go on a little family road trip around Ireland. Um, and the primary reason for going was my dad wanted to find out a bit more about his heritage, his roots, and his grandfather was born in a place called Omagh in Ireland. So we made that a part of our trip. Um, and yeah, that was great fun. A really, really good experience.
Did you meet any relatives?
We didn't, but we stayed at the Mellon Country Hotel. So we found a
Nice.
hotel that has our surname in the little town that my dad's grandfather is from. And then we we went on a little drive, and we saw, because when we were approaching the Mellon Country Hotel, we saw Mellon Road, and it's a looped road in this town. So we thought, let's take a little drive down Mellon Road and see what we come across. And we were driving down Mellon Road and we found a museum that's all about melons. It's the Mellon Museum. um, uh, but we somehow got in the back door of the museum. So as it was closing, we didn't realize, but we just came across this house that was the Mellon House, and there was a woman dressed up in kind of old, like an old maid's outfit.
Yeah.
And she came outside to greet us, and she was as confused to see us as we were to see her. But she told us a little bit about the story about these melons. Um, and then the curator of the museum came over and said that they were unlikely to be our melons because our
Oh,
melons were Catholic and their melons were Protestant or
oh,
Presbyterian. So they said it's very unlikely that you're the same melons, but we are not convinced. So we're doing a little bit more research into that family, because there were some family photos on the walls of these melons. And we have some old photographs that got passed down, and we recognize some of the people in the
oh,
photographs.
wow.
So we're doing a little bit more research, but that's all back in South Africa. My parents haven't gone back yet, so we'll
Okay.
see if they are our melons. But it was really fun, and my niece was wide-eyed. She kept saying, "Are we famous?" Because she just saw melon everywhere. So I said, "No, but many years ago, the melons were obviously a prominent family in this."
Yeah. And so how did your dad find the experience to kind of, kind of be there where the ancestors
Yeah.
came from?
I think he was in his element. He had his camera out, and every time he saw the melon name, he was taking photos. So he was really enjoying kind of finding out a little bit more. We also, a bit morbid, but we went to the church, the Catholic church in the town where we know that my dad's great grandfather is buried, because we had already found
Okay.
that through tracing ancestry. And while we were there, we found about six other gravestones with the Mellon name on them, family members that we hadn't heard about before, but presumably if they lived in that town and they went to the same church as his great
Yeah.
grandfather, they are somehow related to us. So we took lots of photos of Mellon graves. And
Okay.
we bumped into a man in the graveyard who is digitizing all of the grave details.
Oh,
And so he said,
interesting.
in a few months' time, we'll be able to go onto the church's website and see how all the graves are linked and what they've been able to find out about the families there. So that was fascinating. We spent quite a long time trawling through the graveyard looking for melons. And teasing my niece about how, because some of the graves are a bit damaged and they look like there's holes coming out of the ground, so we say
Yeah.
these ones are coming back up. um, but
Oh my
but
word.
yeah, it was a really great family trip. We had a lot of fun, and then aside from the melon reason for going, it was also just really beautiful. We went to the Wicklow Mountains, Glendalough Loch, Lake Glendalough,
Yeah.
and it's just so beautiful. I can't even describe how stunning it was. And where else did we go? We obviously went to the Guinness factory.
Hmm.
Basically, this whole holiday for my dad has been everything that he loves: beer, his family, and finally, I'll get to the Springboks.
Okay. Fantastic. So it
Yeah,
sounds like a really good trip.
yeah.
Um, so what did you learn anything about Ireland or the Irish that you didn't otherwise know?
That they are the friendliest people on earth, but I think I knew that
Really?
already. I don't want to ostracize the people, the place I live now, but there's been a very clear difference between how uh, English people engage and interact versus where I come from, South Africa. Um, and it's been quite a stark difference just in kind of general friendliness and cheerfulness. Um, like when you go into a supermarket, the way the cashiers address you, or um, obviously we don't have petrol attendants here, but they're always really friendly in South Africa and they'll chat with you. And in the in England, it's not as apparent that people are that friendly, and often
Hmm.
cashiers at shops are surprised when you'll I'll say to them, "Hi, how are you? How's your day?"
Yeah.
Um, so when we went to Ireland, it felt more like home. Uh, just people, when you let a car in front of you, they say thank you. When you let someone cross the road, even at a pedestrian crossing where you're supposed to let them cross the road, they acknowledge you and they thank you. So that was very cool. Like we saw a woman's car break down at a traffic light, and two guys jumped out of their cars and went to help
Hmm.
her. And so that was pretty cool. It really did feel quite familiar. It felt like South Africa without certain things.
You've been out of Joburg too long. You clearly can't remember what it's. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting because you just kind of the common thing that you always hear is that the Scottish people are so friendly.
Okay.
It may be just a kind of podcast that I listen to and that sort of thing, you know. But generally, guys that go over to Scotland and play golf there, they say that that's exactly the experience. Now, maybe I just haven't paid enough attention to what people's views are. These are generally Americans, that go
Yeah.
over to go and play golf and do the touristy thing. Um, so it's fantastic to hear that it is so obvious and so different and so pleasant.
Yep.
I'll put it on my bucket list.
Yeah. So I haven't
It,
been
it
to
has been.
Scotland.
It has been.
Scotland's on my bucket list, so that also it sounds great that they're also a nice bunch of people. That's something I want to do.
Yeah. So I definitely don't want to make it sound like the British are not friendly. Uh,
I'm sure
but
there's wherever you go. I live in a small town, and I've heard that small
mm,
town folk are less open to outsiders than the general public. So I'm sure if you're in London, in a big city where there's a big group of people, that they would be more friendly. I don't know.
no,
But I'm,
no.
I'm trying not to upset the people where I live.
Um,
They won't be watching this
look,
anyway, so it's fine.
no, no. No, look, just in my experience, I mean, London, not really very chatty.
Mm-mm.
Do not strike up a conversation with the person on the seat next to you on the subway or the train or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it is kind of more the different nations than it is just a particular town or city.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange how because generally I think people naturally are more friendly.
Yeah.
Is it just habits, customs? I can't really say customs, but is it maybe just habit?
I have no idea, but there must be something because it's, I mean, I'm not the only person to notice it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
excellent. And then where did your travels take you from Ireland?
well, then I started my new job, and that took me to Cwmbran in Wales for a couple of days. That was also stunning. I must tell you, if you ever find yourself there, you should stay at the place where I stayed because it's a golf resort and it's stunning. It's very nice.
Okay,
It's
I mean,
called
sold.
Celtic Manor. Really nice
Oh
resort.
my goodness. Of course I know. Of course I
Oh, do you
know
know
about the
Celtic
golf
Manor?
course. Yes.
Okay, well, that's where I stayed for the 3 days or 2 nights. And I had my first, again, I'm going to be horrible about England, the first good steak I've eaten since I moved to this country. So that's not actually England's fault. It's I paid quite handsomely for that steak, and it was at a very nice resort at a very nice restaurant. So, um, I could probably find it here too. I just haven't gone to any of those nice restaurants yet.
Yeah.
But one of the things I miss from South Africa is a good steak.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you found one.
Yeah, so
Finally.
that was one of the highlights of my trip to Cwmbran. But aside from that, it was a very good trip, very good work trip. Met a lot of really friendly people. Everyone I've met so far in my new job, I'm not saying not English people, just some of them were English, but just everyone that I've met in my new job has been very willing to help and to share what they know. Um, and I haven't really met anyone yet that's guarded or trying, to keep anything to themselves, which is quite nice when you're starting something new and you have a lot of questions. Everyone's been very helpful.
And in general, the Welsh people, compared to the Irish?
um, so I didn't encounter many people outside of the work environment.
Okay.
Actually, the one day at the hotel, I went to the hotel gym and got into a conversation with some Welsh people. They were very friendly as well and open to conversation. So, yeah, probably also very friendly people. I do. A family member's husband is half Welsh, and he's a very friendly person. So I do believe the Welsh are friendly people too.
That's interesting, yeah. I wonder if it's we when no, but I think the general consensus is that some nations are just a lot friendlier and open. It's not just that they obviously hear and see that you're not from there
Yeah,
or a tourist, and therefore kind of try to be a more friendly towards you.
yeah.
Um,
I wonder
okay,
if there's. I don't want to speculate too much, but I wonder if there's something about like conquering nations historically because the English were conquerors. I don't know. So maybe it's the way that other people treat them is the reason that they're not a friendly bunch. I
it's quite the theory. It's quite the theory.
Okay,
I don't think I don't think anybody still carries some of the traits or habits from I don't know 200, 300 years ago in
wasn't
terms of
that long
the
ago for some of the. Uh,
Yeah, how long ago did the conquering part stop? I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about quite a few generations, at least. Must be 100 years. I don't know. I suppose it depends on who you ask, what the definition of conquering that you use. Anyway, that's an
Yeah,
interesting
off
theory that
topic.
you have there. Yeah.
um, Although we don't really have a topic, but still off topic. Um, so then I went back to Wales. So I came back for a day and then went back to Wales to Cardiff to watch the Springboks versus Wales at Principality Stadium.
Oh,
And that was a fantastic experience. Just so there again, I can say that the Welsh are very friendly people because they lost quite horribly to the Springboks, and they were still very nice to us afterwards.
okay.
And we were all in
Okay.
our South African gear, so um, yeah, they took it on the chin. Um, but in fairness, South Africa were playing, and lucky for us, basically our A side, our starting side. And the Welsh weren't, which I suppose was a bit of a surprise.
Mm,
They were trying out some. I mean, people are trying different things for the World Cup coming up soon.
correct.
So we played almost a full strength squad. Sia was back from his injury, and yeah, but it was just a phenomenal experience. We're very Springboks proud in our family, and so it was a great
Yeah.
just a great outing for all of us.
A few things that can top that feeling of watching the Springboks play an away game and winning.
Yes.
Um, yeah, okay. Did you get a sense that there's a lot of excitement about the Rugby World Cup? I mean, I suppose it's a silly
Yeah.
question given that you were at a rugby
Yeah.
stadium.
No, very much so. So, I mean, we'd been told by the Welsh family member that the stadium probably wouldn't be at capacity because it's a friendly and the World Cup's coming up, and that it probably won't have the same feeling as a normal match, like a
Yeah,
test match or international or whatever. It'll be like a little bit more like a local game. And I think there were 68,000 people in the stadium, capacity
wow.
70,000. So it was it was
It
huge.
was, yeah.
And the atmosphere was unreal. So the game started at, I think the kickoff was at 3 o'clock on Saturday. We got to the stadium at about 12. And Cardiff, I mean, I'd been told by people before I went, I'd met some people when I went for work, and family and friends have all said like the atmosphere around Principality Stadium on match day is unreal. There's just many pubs to choose from all around the
Yeah,
stadium. And yeah, we got there at about 12 o'clock, so 3 hours before the match. And just the vibe was incredible, just red and green everywhere, and people were really friendly. I was saying it was so nice to see so many South Africans because I've lived in the UK for a year, and you probably are around a lot of South Africans, but you don't know it.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell every other person's wearing a Springboks jersey, and you just feel like you're all connected somehow, which is really, I mean, that's what sport has
Yeah,
always been for South Africa, this thing that brings everyone together. Um, so yeah, it was unbelievable.
okay. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the fact that sport is the one thing that managed to bring people together. Um, and I suppose it's you know, you've only had that kind of short period of time to kind of measure it against. But I was going to ask a question, or do you get the feeling that people are less bothered about what's going on around them in their country, their city, their country, and in general in the world? Um, but as I say, I know it's an unfair question because I mean this
Yeah,
was all about the match.
yeah,
Everyone was there to have a good time, and you kind of set aside all the other things that consume your thoughts
yeah,
uh, for the rest of the time.
yes.
But just in general, in your travel to both Ireland and in Wales, did you kind of get a sense of what the mood of the people are with regards to are they upbeat? Are they I don't know, a little bit more reserved, or are they negative about things like the economy and so on?
Mm, so obviously, because I was there for work initially, it comes up. The cost of living is like a phrase that you hear a lot. Cost of living crisis.
Okay.
Um, but generally, I think, I mean, as you say, we were there for a game that costs money, so the people that are
Mm,
there can probably afford it, and you're seeing people in pubs, and but generally, it looked like people are mostly positive. I mean, again, it is hard to say because we were.
yeah.
I'm trying to remember now where we saw more homeless people than I've seen. I'm trying to remember. I think it was in Ireland. It was in Dublin, so it's in a big city. But we
Okay.
saw quite a few homeless people, which was unexpected for me. I also haven't seen
Mm,
homeless people that much. Um, you see a few campers, so rough
yeah.
sleepers or people that live in tents around our town. But yeah, it did. Some of the people looked a little bit more down and out when we were in Dublin. Um, but obviously, coming from South Africa perspective is a crazy thing because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not nearly to the same level as what I've seen in the past.
Mm. Well, I just in the last couple of days again, I saw some video footage on social media of a number of cities around Europe where it seems like it is I would almost say it's becoming worse by the day.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw footage of Brussels, which if you asked me to pick a city where you think it would not be really taken effect yet, you know. So I was quite shocked by that. But it's interesting you mentioned that you heard the phrase cost of living quite a lot,
mm-hmm.
and I think that yeah, people are still managing and they're getting by, but the fact that there's that much awareness
Yeah,
about the cost of living, um, and obviously everyone has to make sacrifices to deal with that,
yeah,
which which is something that I think about quite a lot, and I don't know what the answer to the problem is, um, but I'm thinking about it out of obviously my own context as well. Is and just a chat that I had in the last week with somebody where people are feeling it,
yeah,
and you first of all you feel helpless because it's something completely out of your control. For me is the question of, well, we are not at max yet. In other words, inflation can still go
yeah,
higher, economic conditions can still get worse, etc. So what does it look like, and what does one do to mitigate that? Um, because you can't fully prepare for it.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you can manage your finances as well as you possibly can, etc., etc. But it's a very difficult thing for me to kind of get my own head around. Um,
Yeah,
so that's something that I'm definitely thinking through at the moment in terms of um, how it affects me and how it affects people around me,
yeah,
and kind of from an employer's perspective, people that I have a responsibility towards, you know, because the answer to this is not more money, because that actually just is fuel on the fire,
yeah,
um, to a large extent, you know. Um, so anyway, that's one of the things that I've been thinking through, and as I say, I don't have a theory or a conclusion to that yet. But it is something, and that's why I'm interested to hear perspectives of what happens in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Um, so thanks for sharing that. Um, so you also fortunate enough to go to another rugby match soon.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Wow,
Although that's giving away when we record our podcasts. Yeah,
that's
so
okay.
I've got I'm going to the Springboks versus the All Blacks tomorrow at Twickenham, which that's going to be interesting because it's an away game for both. Um,
Mm.
it's obviously just a friendly warm up for the World Cup, which starts in 2 weeks, does it? um,
Yeah, somewhere around here.
yeah, so very excited for that one. Not as confident that we're gonna have the same kind of score as we had against Wales, um,
Yeah.
but have all the South African jerseys and hats and scarves and everything washed and ready for tomorrow. That was the first thing we threw in the washer when we got back from Wales.
Okay.
um, so yeah, looking forward to another really good time. And obviously, it's in London. There's a lot more South Africans and Kiwis there, and
Mm.
so I think there's going to be a good turnout in terms of support. Um, and yeah, I'm interested to see. I've never been to a game at Twickenham. Last week was my first international Springboks game internationally, so I've obviously been to a few in South Africa. But yeah, so that was an unbelievable experience, and I think tomorrow is going to be just as good. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Twickenham is such a famous and well-known stadium. Just the whole scene and kind of seeing that up close and experiencing that and everything around it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, so that's the
It'll
the
be
end of my busy time.
it'll be interesting to see what that split is in terms of the
Yes,
support,
yes,
for a neutral venue, so far away from both nations playing.
yeah.
Yeah,
We've been
I think it's going
hypothesizing
to be
about
fun.
it. I think um, I think it's going to be a huge turnout. And initially, we thought probably on the side of South Africa, more South Africans. But I know that Kiwis have more disposable income and are more willing to travel for a game like this. So I feel like maybe there'll be more New Zealanders there.
Wow.
Um, but also for South Africans and New Zealanders, the World Cup tickets were really expensive, and traveling to France is really expensive. So this is a really
Mm.
nice, like, I mean, that's why we booked the tickets, like
Yeah.
a more affordable option for seeing a really great game before the
Mm.
World Cup. So yeah, I think it's going to be a huge turnout.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, well, I'm sure you guys are going to have a load of fun there.
Thanks. And we'll be back to regular scheduling next week. Now that my life is going to
Excellent.
settle and go back to normal. So Matthew's mom and stepdad left yesterday. They stayed with us while they were here. But I mean, I was away. I was in Wales for a few days. I was in Ireland for a
Yeah.
few days. So I wasn't here most of the time.
Okay.
And my parents go back to South Africa on Monday. Um, so from
Okay.
next week, my life will go back to some kind of normal routine. I did want to actually touch on that because you had asked
Yeah.
me about my habits and my reading and my walking and my routines
Yes.
and what I was going to do when my life was a little bit more complicated. So I can tell you, most of my habits completely fell to the wayside over the
Okay.
last 3 or 4 weeks. I took a book with me everywhere I went and I planned to read, but I was so busy and tired that I couldn't even
Mm.
read a chapter of a book a day. So that definitely fell to the side. My walking, I mean, I was walking naturally because we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
walking around when I'm traveling, but I wasn't making the same effort. I haven't been to gym in probably 3 weeks. I
Yeah.
swam once in Ireland in the sea, which was amazing. Made an effort to go and swim in Ireland, and got back into swimming yesterday after work. I went for a
Okay.
swim. So I I think you had brought this up as it taking a break from them makes you realize what you miss and what you feel contributes positively to your life. So you might be pleased to know that the one thing I didn't really miss was reading my daily Stoic every day. But I am still doing it now that I'm back in my routine.
Yeah,
Just because it's a habit and I'm curious about what the Stoics say about certain things. So
sure.
I am still picking it up and reading it. It's an easy thing to do, but
Yeah,
I didn't miss not having
okay.
it. Um the reading has definitely slowed down, but I'm still committed and enjoying reading. So I'm not stopping that at all, but maybe I'm not as pedantic about reading a chapter a day.
Hmm.
Um, and then the fasting was a big one actually that I struggled with because I'm traveling, staying
Sure.
at bed and breakfasts, going for dinner with colleagues, going for dinner with family. Uh, ate really terribly the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm very aware of that and also very eager to get back into eating and fasting better. So getting back into that routine now. But all of these things feel like I set myself up that they're really easy to do. So as soon as
Hmm.
I'm back to it, I'm back to it. I don't have to struggle to get back into the routine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you agree with me now that it was kind of like a valuable experience? You were a little apprehensive about, oh, what is this going to do with
Yeah.
my, now that you've done it and seen, okay, cool. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that you kind of thought about these things and kind of, you know, number one is it didn't make you have a less of a good time while you were away because you were feeling like, oh, geez, I can't get to this or can't do
Yeah.
that. Um, and that you're also comfortable in terms of picking it up again, the ones that that do add value and that you feel that you want to continue with.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's it.
We'll
So
chat next week.
yeah, chat to you next week. We'll have a proper topic. And
Thanks.
thank
Yeah.
you very much. Thanks, Herman.
Cheers.